Now playing movie reviews in 20 Qs.
Hello, good people, and welcome to the podcast Movie Reviews in 20 Qs, the show where we review a movie by asking 20 weird and wonderful questions about it. Episode 151, guys. We are tracking along. This is following the three of us being on the Ask Me Anything episode last week. Unbelievable. The stuff that came out. Surreal.
Yeah, it was out of this world.
So crazy that we don't even know what it is yet because we haven't recorded it yet.
It was just epic. I just already know because I watched Tenet and I actually have been reversing in time ever since we did that podcast, and I can tell you it's fantastic.
But even still, you're back even though you're now wanted in 12 different countries.
Yes, that is correct. Is that because of my daring escape from Ministry of Health, like quarantine? Where I'm like actually hiding in the bush right now and eating rats?
Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about, Liz. You COVID testing, dodging lunatic, maniac.
I'll have you know, I've had 2 COVID tests in the past 2 days, and I'm having a 3rd one tomorrow, so that I can definitely get the hell out of here on Sunday.
But we're not here to talk about you getting tested. We are here to talk about Promising Young Woman, a 2020 film, /2021 release, because it's sort of gone wide in 2021.
It's kind of like COVID, where it's COVID-19, but actually it was big in 2020. So I feel like this is like a movie in 2020, but it's big in 2021.
Yeah, That's a pretty good way to describe it. I mean, Stacey, you went and saw it in the end of 2020. I shouted you along to a special preview screening that you were very happy about.
Yeah, I was totally stoked to get the afternoon off and sit in a dark theatre and not worry about anyone apart from myself.
Was it popcorn?
Yeah, not worry about children.
Yes, popcorn.
Had an ice cream.
Ice cream and happy days. I didn't know anything about it. Even up until I was sitting in the cinema, I knew nothing.
Living the dream.
And great movie.
I'd seen the trailer for it multiple times on Facebook. Like, I quite often scroll through the random video crap, late at night when I'm supposed to be sleeping. And I'd seen, quite often it was freeze framed on the bit where she's wearing, like, the nurse's costume and the colourful wig. I was just like, oh, what is this? Some kind of like Halloween stabby movie or something? But I was like, oh, it looks kind of fun. I'll see what it is. And I've watched it a couple of times and been like, this looks pretty good. So we'll see how we go about watching it. And then Stacey the other day was like, Liz, I think I'd quite like to do this on a podcast. And I was just like, hell yeah.
Well, Stacey never wants to do a film. This is probably the second film she's ever wanted to do on our podcast.
And it's interesting. I wanted to do it sooner, but nobody could see it. But it's because I left the cinema, even watching the movie, I was actually thinking about Machu. I was like, how would Machu like this movie? I was like, would he be uncomfortable right now?
I totally get that. Because as I was watching it, as I've said to Sam already today, like, I'm really excited to hear what he thinks. I've definitely seen some feedback on social media that it should only be women talking about it. And I don't necessarily agree. I don't want to hear someone like Donald Trump talking about it, but I do want to hear what legitimate, decent dudes that I know think about it and how it makes them feel, because I'm really curious, because I've certainly got opinions on how it made me feel.
Well, legitimate, decent dudes are not here. You've got me.
Sam, this is probably the only time I'm going to compliment you on this podcast. You are actually a legitimate, decent dude.
The closest I can come.
Can't believe I had to just give you a decent thing to say something nice about you.
No.
I need a drink.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone that hasn't seen this that wants to play along with the podcast, I mean, basically, it's just come out. It stars Carey Mulligan as Cassie or Cassandra, Laverne Cox as Gail, her boss, Bo Burnham as her boyfriend in the film. Oh, spoiler alert, by the way, for a new film, whatever. Bo Burnham as her love interest, Clancy Brown and Jennifer Coolidge as her parents. Oh, and then Alison Brie as one of her former friends. And we've got a couple of cameos from quite famous people, like McLovin shows up in one scene. Adam Brody shows up in one scene.
And Seth Cohen, yeah.
Connie Britton shows up in one scene. Molly Shannon shows up in one scene. There was quite a few just random cameos from quite big names. And, before we get into it a bit, I mean, we typically are quite funny, stupid, weird, and then sometimes a little bit poignant and a little bit deep on this podcast. I've got a feeling due to the subject of this film, this is probably going to be one of our more poignant episodes. So if you haven't seen this film, and you're just tuning in just to have a laugh, this is probably not the episode for you.
Yeah, if you're a dude, bro, and you're like, yeah, fucking Trump, you are probably not going to like
Pretty sure none of them ever listen to our podcast. But that being said, I mean, if you're not planning on going to see this film, I highly recommend you do. I mean, in America, you can now watch it on video on demand, I believe. But if you're not planning on seeing this film, Liz, what's the plot? What's the plot of Promising Young Woman?
Please go see this film, honestly. without giving too much away. I was struggling to describe the plot because I've told a couple of my friends that they should see it, and it's been quite hard to describe it in a way that makes you want to see it, but I promise you it's worth it. So the plot is basically that the lead character, Cassie, she was in medical school a long time ago. She left because something happened to one of her friends, and she's now living a life where it's basically all about trying to, I guess, seek justice or retribution for her friend. But that's a really shitty way to describe it. It's just really hard to cover it off. Do you have a better way?
Yeah, I mean, like, we'll go full spoiler. Basically, her best friend got raped at university, and then the people that were responsible for it basically dodged taking responsibility for it. And so she's...
As many do.
Yeah. And so she's since been on this sort of one-woman warpath to try and right the wrongs of that. And so she goes out, pretends to be drunk, and then when guys hit on her, take her home, whatever, she then sort of flips around and is just like, you know, what are you doing? Like, what the hell do you think you're doing?
It's just the best moment when, and we're getting a bit into the podcast meat now, but with the moment where she flips from pretending to be drunk with this guy, and she just suddenly goes completely lucid and just says, what are you doing? And I just think that's excellent and, yeah, brilliant. I would make the point, though, that it's not just about retribution for the specific people who were culpable in the attack on her friend, but as well as she's trying to attack the concept as a whole and the men that are perpetuating the problem. And yeah, like it's like her whole life is consumed by the attack that happened to her friend.
And so basically, like, that's the rest of the film, is that she comes in contact with someone that she was at university with around that time. They start forming a relationship. The guy that raped her friend sort of comes back on the picture, and then the rest of the film is basically her seeking her revenge against those people that did this to her, as well as forming a relationship with that other guy. And, I mean, I'm not going to say any more than that. I mean, that's pretty much the first half of the film, and I think anyone should go out and watch this. I mean, I highly recommend it. Looking at the scores for the film, 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb. Metacritic, 71%, Rotten Tomatoes, 92%, so that's more indicative of actually, like, the quality of this film. But, yeah, I mean, we'll do our usual spiel. We start with 10 questions that can be applied to any film, and then move into our personal questions. Finish on either a Patreon question or a listener question. Didn't have time for a listener question this week, so we're doing a Patreon question. And the one we always start with, compliment sandwich. I mean, we've already been singing its praises a bit, but Liz, why don't you start us off? Why don't you give us your one good thing, one bad thing, one good thing, and then give us a score out of 10,000 necklaces. All
right, I'm going to start with my first good thing. So it's not a shit sandwich, which I think was probably pretty obvious.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Whoa. Okay, so the dialogue I just found was perfection. There were just amazing one-liners that actually had me laughing out loud. So every time it was starting to get a bit deep, there were moments that just had you laughing or just absolutely blown away, and you were just like, yes, excellent. And to that, like, it just captured exactly the kind of things that people say in those sort of situations. Like, it was just written so well, and the script was perfect. Like, I couldn't find fault with it. And that's not the only thing I couldn't find fault with, because I couldn't think of a bad thing about this movie.
Hyperbole sandwich?
So this is my very first hyperbole sandwich.
I never thought it was mentally possible for you.
Me either. And as I was watching this film, I was like, I think this might be a hyperbole sandwich. And by the end, I was like, this has to be a hyperbole sandwich, because holy shit balls. So, I mean, the great thing about this film is just the way that it was put together. The flow, the storyline, the direction. Like, I love this director, Emerald Fennell. Yep. She blew my mind. Like, the movie is so well done, and it's the first movie I watched, I don't even know how long, that I've loved it this much and just walked out and just been so satisfied and just so sitting there going, yes, thank you. I can't believe it's her debut movie. I will absolutely be watching anything else that she puts out. And frankly, it is just light years ahead of the shit that Sam usually makes me watch for these podcasts.
I've been picking most of these films. You anyway, yeah.
No, honestly, like, I mean, that's a little unfair. Movies. But just the idea, usually I watch these films and I have to analyze them, right, for the podcast. Like, I like to analyze them, as we've talked about. And usually there's just things I'm like, oh, that's so dumb. That wouldn't have happened. Or, oh, that person never would have said that. And I just didn't really get that at all. There's a couple of things I'll bring up maybe in the next answer. But no, like, fuck me. It was so good and it just spoke to me. I just can't get over that.
Final good thing?
Yeah, so my final good thing was, it's kind of hard to describe, but often the women were portrayed seemingly more powerful than the men, and like dominating them in the scene. It was immensely satisfying as a woman to watch that, to watch these women owning the situations and being like the stronger one in the situation, because it's just not necessarily something that happens every time, and especially not in movies. Like movies, it's always so often the woman is the weaker person. And look, honestly, yep, strength, I get that, but I can't explain it better than that, and maybe Stacey gets what I mean. But,
I do,
yeah.
I do.
Oh, good. So, my score, I thought, if I'm going to do a hyperbole sandwich, I'm going the whole hog. So I'm going to give this score, the score of 3.541 billion to this movie. And the reason I choose this...
That's the highest score I've ever had.
Well, it's the best movie I'm possibly ever seen. And the reason I'm giving it that score is because that's the number of women in the world, and that's how many women I hope have a best friend like Cassie who has their back when this shit happens to them. Because frankly, the odds are it will. So let's hope that you've got a bitch like Cassie who's just going to have your back and sort your shit out.
Wow, that is hard to follow, Liz.
Sorry, I've been wanting to get this out for days, Stacey, days.
Cool, that's Liz done for the podcast. Okay, what about you, Stacey?
But you know what? I'm so excited to hear that, because I was like, wow, Liz is going to love this. And I didn't want to tell you you'd love it before you'd watch it. So I just asked you. I would be interested to hear what you thought of it. Okay, well, I'm giving this a hyperbole sandwich as well.
What the bloody fuck?
Yeah, boy.
And it's my first one.
Shit.
You tell 'em, sister.
Because you're exactly right. I didn't realise this, but I couldn't think of something bad, so
No.
it is. It just is.
You just don't understand how movies never do it this well. Like it was just, it obviously was like written by women and done for women and by women, and holy shit balls.
Yeah. So my first good thing is the whole entire story was very refreshing. Like, I can't emphasize that word enough. I can't even think of a better word. It's like your description of, you're like, yes, finally, we're seeing some really interesting female characters on screen. And I was about 3/4 or 2/3 of the way through the movie, and I was thinking, when was the last time I saw a guy on screen talking to another guy? I don't think I have since the opening scene with the 3 guys in the bar.
Yeah, that's really true.
And then you see a tiny bit at the end.
It's the opposite of the Bechdel test, is it?
Yes.
Like, the guys only talk to each other about women, pretty much.
Yes, exactly. The complete opposite. I don't think I've ever noticed that in the film before. So that was my first good thing. My great thing was I just love the style of the movie, the colours, her style, like the Cassie's wardrobe, her hair. It just said so
just
much
all the
about her
costumes
personality.
and the colours and the neon and just
and
the brightness.
the way she walked.
What do you call that, Sam?
What do you call it?
The visuality of it?
It's
or?
like the production, it's all the
It's just the use of
props and
colour,
stuff.
basically, yeah.
But it's not just
cinematography, but it's like just the colour palette and,
I'm kind of visuality or production values or something.
Yeah. Whatever it is, it was banging. Like, it was just so cool. So cool.
Like, I found my Halloween costume for this year. And it's the nurse costume.
I was going to, I don't think we need to ask.
Yeah. Love it.
And my final good thing, the food in this when in a movie do you see the main hot as female character do ugly eating? She does ugly eating in almost every scene, like real kind of biting things.
I fucking love when she's walking back with like the breakfast sandwich or whatever, and she's just like...
She got sauce running down her arm, and it's just like, whatever.
It's a good use of symbolism to show that this character does not give a fuck.
Yeah, she does not give a fuck.
She's amazing. The bit where they catcall her, and she's just like staring at them and like just shoving this breakfast sandwich in her face, like just completely unimpressed. I was just like, oh, you fucking A, bitch.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then it just kept coming. Like, there were just more and more scenes where she was eating. Like, when she went out for lunch with Ryan, she actually ate her fries. She had fries and a burger, and she was eating it like a normal person, not like having a salad and not touching it on a date.
What about your score then, if you were going hyperbole sandwich?
Oh, look, I'm really struggling with this because my logical brain won't really let me go too much over 100%, because 100% is the best you can get, right?
It's amazing that she says she has a logical brain, yet we all know the Stacey answers to every question that we ever hear her on, which is usually like this weird, obtuse...
They are logical.
She can be lateral and
they
logical,
are.
right?
They're logical if you're an insane patient.
Okay, well,
You could give it 10,000 exactly, because then it would be 100%.
yes, actually, I will give it 10,000.
Fair enough. That is the bare minimum to become a hyperbole sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Well, fuck it. We run this
Go
podcast.
girlfriend.
We make up whatever rules we like.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's making it that there's nothing bad, right? If you're saying it's 100% perfect, like it's perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not a hyperbole sandwich. I'm so sorry. I tried.
No, that's okay.
I tried.
Like, if you've got something that you found bad about it, then it's you.
So the thing for me is for 75% or roughly 80% of the film, I was like, this is some of the best filmmaking I've seen in years, like literally years. And then there's just one or two scenes that sort of stick out as jarring, sort of awkward, like the tonal changes within those scenes just doesn't seem organic or sort of make sense. You know,
Can you give us a couple examples or like one example?
I was going to. Like, for instance, one that I didn't really like was when she goes to see Molly Shannon, which is her friend's mum, and she gets there and she's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in so long. Hey, how are you? And then they're just talking. She's like, oh, you know, what was that guy that picked on her? And she was like, you just need to leave. Get out of my house. And then she just storms off. And it's like, I don't know if people would do that. And the reason why I'm saying this is this film kind of grounds itself in a weird reality. And so when they have these scenes that just feel obtuse and out of place, it sort of irks me a bit. It's sort of like, and maybe that's just the way I like view these type of films. Another one is like when Alison Brie shows up and she's got the phone and she says, oh, by the way, we've got the video. You know, what happened to me? What happened to me? And she's like, oh, yeah, that guy was just a friend. No, you're fine, all that sort of stuff. And I thought that was a, like, you know, reasonable explanation. And then when she's inside, she's like, don't you ever talk to me again. And it's just like, where's that come from?
I think that bit, I think the first bit they showed, I mean, I don't know, but the first scene I think was just showing that everyone was trying to get Cassie to let it go.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't. I think that was what the point of the first one was. And I think the second one, she kind of knew what Cassie had done, but couldn't exactly accuse her of it. Like, she didn't have any proof or anything, so she just kind of knew that she'd fucked with her.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I get what you mean, though. That's fair.
There was scenes like that. The other one was when she was slumped over her car in the middle of the road, and it looks like she's had a stroke and she's died. And that guy just pulls up beside her, and there's no cars around for miles, and he's like, "Get off the road, you stupid cunt!" And it's like, what? What person would do that? Okay, and like me and Machu and Kahu went and saw this. Yep, 3 boys. We went and saw this film. We came out. We had a lot to say about it as well. But we talked about that scene and we were like, that just doesn't make any sense. But then we thought, well, maybe that's America. It doesn't make sense to us because if that shit happened in New Zealand, like if you pulled up beside a car and a woman was slumped over the steering wheel, you'd get out and be like, oh my God, ring an ambulance. Hey, you all right? Have you had a stroke? You know, having a heart attack? Something like that. So maybe it's just our New Zealand eyes. That being said, all up, 8,900. This is some of...
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I love this film. Film. This is easily a 4.5 or actually maybe 8,500. It's about 8,500 necklaces. I forgot my phone a good thing, which is what you guys talk about, the story. I got towards the end and I was like, I know exactly where this is going. I didn't.
Yes.
That
ending, I did not expect that ending, but it was perfect. But I didn't expect it.
Phenomenal. It left me sitting there going, I am so gutted that this has happened. But then...
Yeah.
Like, it was devastating, but it was perfect. Fucking hell.
So as much as it was perfect, it did lead into the part where she was texting him and it happened to coincide at the same time the police showed up, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of cutesy, you know what I mean? But at the same time, still enjoyed it. Anyway, that's enough. That's enough from us for our question number 1. Let's move over to question number 2. What is it there, Liz?
So, question number 2 is a Patreon question from Julio of the Contrarians podcast. He is a great dude. It's a great podcast. They basically take a popular film and tell you all the reasons why it sucks. Or take a film that everyone hates and tell you all the reasons why it's good. And that makes sense for their question because it is, what is your most controversial opinion about this film?
Yeah, I don't feel like you know how she's getting these revenges on these people? I don't feel like they deserved what they got.
Oh.
Like as in...
Yeah, as in like what happened to them. Like, for instance, Connie Britton's character, how... she had her daughter kidnapped and held in a restaurant, and then, you know...
That is controversial, Sam.
No, I think they deserved more.
Yeah, I thought that might be what you were saying, is that you found.
Yes,
Yeah.
these
knew
people
you
should
weren't
have their
saying it.
fucking lives destroyed. That's what happened to her friend. Like having, your daughter was kidnapped. Let that drag out
But I
for a
actually-
day. Just walk
I
out of
actually
that.
kind of like that. That she was walking on like the high road. She took the high road and went psychological as opposed to actually
Yeah.
causing them damage.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying, because, they were fucking dicks.
But you know, that was the beauty of this entire movie, is that you actually didn't know she was that much unhinged that she could have gone physical
Well, that's what I was
at
trying
any
to say.
moment.
That's what I was trying to say. I want her to go that next level. I wanted more evilness out of this girl. Like, give me a film where Carey Mulligan goes around, like, literally destroying people's lives, and that would be amazing. Like, she went part of the way, but I still wanted just that ruthlessness. Like, when she walked out of Alfred Molina's house, and there was a guy waiting outside. We don't know what that guy was going to do, but I've got a question about it. I wanted to see her walk out and the guy go, do you still want me to go in there? And she's like, yeah, fuck that dude.
Maybe that's a woman-man thing. I don't know. But, like, I actually really liked that she was just trying to find remorse. And because he had remorse, it was okay. And because Madison didn't, it wasn't. Like, I really liked how she had specific lines that she drew in the sand and wouldn't cross unless it was necessary. Like,
Yeah, and this is where I need to bring up Killing Eve. So the only thing I knew going into this movie is Sam said blah 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 something about Killing Eve.
Yeah, so
Like,
the writer
there's
of
a
Killing
connection.
Eve directed this film.
yes, that's right.
Yeah. So neither of you guys have seen Killing Eve, right?
No.
So the main female character is a professional assassin. So she does what you are wanting
I need to watch the show.
Carey Mulligan in this movie to do. And I was thinking about that as I was watching it, because I was expecting her to kill people. I was expecting there to be blood and gore and just ruthless, all out murder. But it wasn't there. And I think that's really clever because, like you say, Liz, they went more the psychological route with this. And she's a normal human being. She's not a professional assassin.
Yeah.
So I think they did the exact right level, tone for her character.
No, don't get me wrong. Like, it's as much as I love to see her fucking up people, at the same time, I would have liked to have seen her psychologically destroy people more. Like, when Connie Britton's, like the dean, if she just walked out of the room and not told her where her daughter was, and then just let her, like, flounder around
leave
for
it
24
hanging.
hours trying to find her daughter or whatever. At the same time, like, they've grounded this in a kind of reality, and the reality of that is if she'd just walked out, then Cassie would have been arrested within the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's just admitted, told her who she was, admitted to kidnapping her daughter. That she'd be off the streets and she'd never be able to finish the rest of the film. And so that's why I gave a bit of a pass. But at the same time, that was my opinion. What about you, Stace?
Well, I think this opinion will only be controversial to the people I'm suggesting this for. But I think that every guy who goes to college in America should watch this film before he starts.
100%. I couldn't agree more. This needs to be mandatory viewing for every man in the world. Like, oh my God. So much.
But it's
Sorry, Stacey,
that opinion.
couldn't agree
I think,
more.
I know, but I think that not because I think it will work, not because I think they'll watch it and go, oh yeah, okay, oh I see, what's going on, but it will make them feel uncomfortable. I think. And that's enough. That's a start.
The thing that it'll do quite well is that it will show to some guys, like 90% of guys aren't like the guys in this film, but when they're in those circumstances where the 10% of those guys are, they'll just stand by and watch those 10% guys do whatever they do and not care.
Yes.
Whereas I feel like this film would be, a film like this will encourage them to be like, no, I'm not going to stand on the sidelines and watch this guy do that to a woman and try and potentially destroy her life. I'm actually going to say something and stop them. I'm not going to cheer along like she finds out her boyfriend did in one scene, you know what I mean?
Oh my God, that bit. Anyway, Stacey, I agree. It's not going to turn everyone, but I feel like there could be some dudes on the cusp who just didn't really get that concept of, if you're so drunk that you're basically unconscious and you can barely speak or stand, you're not consenting to sex.
Yeah.
So don't. Like, it's such a basic concept, but look, the amount of women I know, including myself, who have been in a position like this, like, it's just ridiculous how many.
Totally.
And it's like, I would, well, actually, this sort of leads a bit into my controversial opinion, because I think it should have been called, I feel like Promising Young Woman was an okay title, but I feel like it could have been called #MeToo. And the reason I say that is because the movie ties in so well with the whole campaign of #MeToo. And I don't know if you guys know about the origins of the whole hashtag was basically, it might have been like Alyssa Milano or Rose McGowan or one of them. I started this campaign, was basically like, hey guys, do you realize that like all of the women that you know probably have been either assaulted or harassed or raped or whatever. Woman, if this is you, can you please share this post and say hashtag me too? And of course, the vast, vast majority of the woman population who saw it said hashtag me too, because we all have. And I actually remember bringing this up to my mum, and she was like, oh, I think it's a bit dramatic. It hasn't happened to everyone. And I'm like, she said, it hasn't happened to me. And I was like, yes, it has. You told me about that time when you were like 18 or whatever. She's like, oh, you're right, kind of thing. And it's so ingrained that it's just...
You get conditioned to just ignore
you're like,
things.
every woman's been assaulted. Like, who cares? Kind of thing. Fucking hell, that's insane. If I ask any of the women I know, especially at university years, like, we've all had something fucking horrible happen to us, and we've just kind of got on with it, because that's what happens.
Yeah. That is a controversial opinion, Liz, because I don't...
people would hate it and not want to watch it, but I just feel like it would be good to tie it into it.
I don't agree with it. I don't think the title should be changed. I like the title because it's not a campaign for Me Too. It's its own theatrical, creative entity.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Fun fact for you, Liz, Tarana Burke actually started the Me Too thing back in the mid-2000s on MySpace.
Wow.
No way.
Yeah, it's been going around for ages. She's a social political activist from New York.
Okay, I take back what I said. I think maybe this was like one of the big waves of it or something.
Yeah, it was like 2015, I think.
The Twitter wave?
What's her name? Gutierrez came out and started talking about Harvey Weinstein in 2015, and then that spread on. That became Rose McGowan and everyone else. So
that was it. Yeah. And it was such a good campaign, and it's lost its meaning now. Like a lot of people are like, oh, whatever, you know.
Yeah,
it's just about making dudes
are making
bad.
jokes about it and shit like that, and it's like, oh, God.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, it's just trying to make dudes understand that it really does happen to all of the women you know.
Yeah.
Like, that's basically the whole thing. Anyway.
Okay.
That brings us on to question number 3.
Also a Patreon question. Comes courtesy of Chris Yeni. Thanks, Chris. You're the man.
It does. Thank you, Chris. What song would you have inserted into this film and where, Liz?
Okay, so I think she should have gone home with a dude at Christmas. And his whole apartment's all decorated and, you know, trees and tinsel and all that shit. And he's like, oh, let me put on some music to set the mood. And he starts playing Baby It's Cold Outside.
I saw where that was going. I anticipated that song. Yeah,
because it's the theme of the whole fucking movie. It's so perfect. Like, I was just like, that is the only song that would just apply to this movie so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love female empowerment songs. One of them is Rebel Girl by Bikini Kill. I would have liked that playing when she's walking along with the... Was it the muffin? And she's got the juices running down the arm, or was the?
I thought it was
like
a hot
breakfast,
dog.
It's like breakfast burrito or something like that. And she's got the juices running down.
Whatever it is. It's
Rebel Girl, you're the queen of my world. Something like that. It's real good sort of riot girl music from the mid '90s. I just don't think it's used enough. You know, like we always hear Gwen Stefani's just a girl and stuff like that. I want to bring. I want that song used more. I think it deserves a place. So yeah, that would be mine.
My song just popped into my head for a scene of the movie, and it's the garbage song "Paranoid."
Oh yeah.
And
I get them paranoid.
Yeah, and it popped into my head for our old mate who's goes round to her place and is like, I've been trying to call you. What happened with that guy?
Oh yeah.
Alison Brie.
Alison Brie.
Alison Brie.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
she's
like paranoid as can be.
Well, that's good.
It was ridiculous because she just really didn't seem to click about the parallels. You know, like I found that really bizarre. I'd like to say, though, I was quite impressed that they went with Paris Hilton and Britney Spears. Like,
I hated that.
Because of that, exactly, because it's like, they just went, do you know what, fuck you, we're using full-on girl pop, and we're going to fucking own it. And I was like...
Is it girl pop or is it just shit music?
Oh, look, 100% when he was like, it's Paris Hilton, I was like, ugh, but then I was like, actually... I kind of like that they just went, we're going unapologetic on this, we're going full-on girl pop.
Cool. Next question is also a Patreon question. Comes courtesy of the amazing man. This is Dave Baker. Dave has his own Patreon at patreon.com/your-favorite. On it, he posts a cornucopia of creative content, pro samples, video essays, all that sort of stuff. He's got amazing stuff. You should go check it out in the link below. And what Dave would like to know is which 2 characters from this film would you guys want with you at your house party? Tough question to answer this week, Dave.
None of the younger dudes, I can tell you that right now.
We almost should have flipped the question and gone, which 2 characters do you definitely not want at your house party? But no, we don't need to talk about that. Which two?
I've got two.
Which two?
Okay, so you've got to have Gail, her boss at the coffee shop.
I feel like
'cause
Gail is
she
everyone's
is
answer
cool.
here, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
She's cool and funny and, yeah, very cheeky. And my other person was actually Ryan because, yes, we find out he is, behaves differently at the end of the movie than what we want him to. But he's just a nice guy for most of the movie. He's like what you're saying. He's like
Nice guys. They're
nice
so
guy,
great. No, I know what you mean. Like, he's quite funny. Like, he delivers a lot of the good lines in the movie. So,
and he doesn't take himself too seriously.
He's
like we were
quite
just
witty.
talking about, he's dancing in the pharmacy or the drugstore or whatever.
Yeah, up until the point he turns, you'd want him at your party, but after that,
I think that's the point they're trying to make, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is such a cool dude. Oh, hold on. Yeah. I couldn't agree more about Gail. Like, I feel like she just does not give two fucks. And she's also just fucking cool. And she'd just be such a laugh to have at your party. My second person, I'm going with Jordan, Alfred Molina's character, the lawyer.
Really?
Whoa.
Yeah,
He's a
because I
nut
feel
job.
like I have a reason for this. If anything goes tits up at that party, it would be convenient to have a lawyer with a conscience handy.
That's a good point.
He's going to have my back.
Fair enough. I'm going to go with Adam Brody and McLovin's characters. I want them with my house party so I can kick the shit out of both of them.
I was going to say, so you can punch him in the face. I knew it. Yeah,
So I can kick the
nice.
living fuck out of. No, I mean, well, the honest answer is it's Gail was like the obvious answer. So I've just, I was like, who else? So her parents, Clancy Brown and Jennifer Coolidge.
Oh, I thought you meant Gail's parents.
Nah,
Like,
not
we
Gail's
didn't
parents.
Meet
Cassie's
Gail's
parents.
parents.
Cassie's parents seem very supportive. I don't get why they don't have a car park straight outside their house and people have to park on the other side of a park and then walk across the park to get to their house. That didn't make any sense to me. Don't know what they're up to there. But at the same time, I still feel like those two are real nice people.
I didn't like with Jennifer Coolidge the one bit where she's just like, "How dare you not remember your birthday?" And I like yelling at her is not going to help.
I feel like she was just
get her some
exasperated at that
therapy.
point. I feel like she's just like, oh.
I get how she would just be struggling, but I really liked the way her dad approached it. Like,
Yeah.
where he was just like, "Oh, it's been so nice to see the Cassie that we know," like kind of thing. I thought that was really sweet.
Sweet as. Moves us over to question number 5. What is there, Liz? And do we all have the same answer?
Probably, because the question is, okay, so I'm going to ask it, I'm going to count down, and then we're all going to say the same fucking thing, all right?
Yeah.
What scene from this film will you remember on your deathbed? 1, 2, 3.
Deathbed.
The smothering.
Yes, the strangulation.
Oh my God.
Yes. Deathbed for the
it
deathbed.
was so long. It just was so long.
Yeah, I
And
had
was
to
just
look
like,
away. I didn't watch the whole
Me
thing.
too. And I really liked that because it wasn't graphic. Like, it wasn't, there wasn't blood spurting out or, her face going purple or anything. It was actually quite a sedate scene. But fuck me, I had to look away.
Yeah. it
The
was
problem,
horrifying.
like as I mentioned at the start, I didn't see this ending coming. I did not see that coming. And part of me that had been rooting for her up until this point and was just like, here we go. Here we go.
And you expected her to fight back.
And
You just thought she was going to fight back and win.
That's exactly
And she
right.
didn't.
And like we're talking about how she didn't murder anyone. I felt like at this point, when he's on top of her and doing what he's doing, I was like, here's a point where she can legitimately murder a person and say it's in self-defense and get away with it. And then she didn't. And then I was like, nah, she's going to live. And then she wakes up. Well, doesn't wake up. He wakes up the next day or hasn't even woken up. His mate disturbs him the next morning. And the guy's been lying there sitting beside a corpse the
All
entire-
night next to this
Yeah.
all
corpse.
night.
Yeah. Just,
I was like, I'm never going to forget this
it was
scene.
just so
That is
dark.
the
It was
scene.
so good.
Yeah.
And it just flipped tropes on the head. Like everything you expected out of a Hollywood movie, it just went, no, fuck you, we're killing it.
The only other one
And I
that
just went-
the only other one that comes close is the guys all dancing sexily at the start, even though none of them are very sexily looking men.
Oh my God, it's so funny you said that because it was literally the first thing I noted down.
Yeah.
I was like, it is not sexy watching men's crotches dance, whereas that's the kind of scene that they always put in women.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was such a great way to start it because I was like, this is gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it was really
Me, Machu, and Kahu were all like, what the fuck are we watching?
I also think that the first shot we meet her, Cassie, in is very striking. She's on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
red pleather bench, almost like Jesus on the cross,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so dramatic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and actually that scene really that made me think of one bit that I found slightly wrong about this film, but it wasn't like because I feel like they did it on purpose. But actually, I think Woman would have come up to her and tried to see if she was okay. Because the times that I've been quite drunk or I've seen women in a bathroom that are really drunk, I've been like, are you okay? And like tried to get them into a taxi, and they've tried to do the same for me. So I feel like that was one thing that I feel like they missed in the movie, which I think they did on purpose. But I feel like woman would have had her back more.
Did you notice that there was like 99% men in that bar,
I don't think there were any other women
So
there
maybe
available.
they did that on purpose.
And
because I felt like it was kind of sad to not point out that actually, women, we do tend to have each other's backs in that kind of situation, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we didn't see any strippers in that bar, but the guys, the conversation they were talking about with their work, obviously they couldn't go to strip clubs, couldn't take their clients to strip clubs anymore because they had a female manager. So, I mean, we didn't see strippers, but I was kind of thinking it's kind of like that kind of place.
Yeah, it was
It was
mostly
kind of well
men.
done.
Sort of like a,
Like,
yeah.
It was, like just a generic kind of, hey,
Yeah.
Gentleman's
Yeah.
bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just one more note on that smothering scene, though. I really loved that her plan was to carve Nina Fisher into his body.
Oh,
like
yeah.
maybe I raped Nina Fisher or whatever, because I hadn't really put together the name association thing, like that all she heard was him.
Yeah.
Like all she heard was his name, and I was like, oh my God, yes. Really clever. Yeah.
Cool. Question number 6, also a Patreon question, comes courtesy of the amazing woman that is Emily Higgins. What is her question there, Stace? Well, you guys know what she does. She does the Tasteless podcast. There's a link down below. You guys know I love her. What's the question there, Stacey?
Okay, question 6. What side character would have the best spin-off movie?
So I'm going again with Jordan, the lawyer, Alfred Molina's character, because I think he likes how it feels to take down Al Monroe. Like, you know, like when she sends him the package at the end and he actually gets to take him down and like he makes amends for his previous actions.
Yes.
So I think then he goes on a crusade to rectify his past wrongdoing. And we just see this movie where he just gets all these wankers that he originally defended and he manages to get them in jail somehow.
Yeah.
That'd be so satisfying. I'd love it.
It would be so good.
I want the harder version of this film. At one point, she comes stumbling out of a bar with a guy wearing a hat and
The fedora.
a fedora.
It's not just a hat.
I know.
Sam.
I was getting
It's
to
a
that. So I was
fedora.
getting to a hat that is known in the neckbeard world as a fedora. It's quite possibly one of the worst hats that any man could wear. Anyway, enough about fashion choices coming from a guy that has none whatsoever. But he says, "Oh, isn't there another one like you that's out there stalking the world?" And she's like using tasers on guys or something, or she's cutting guys' balls off.
No, she says that. She's like, oh, I'm not the only one doing this.
Yeah, she says something about like there's a one out there
No,
that's cutting.
scissors.
Oh yeah, using scissors. That's right. I want to see that movie. That would be an
I
awesome
thought she
horror
was probably
film.
lying, but it would be an awesome film.
Yeah.
That would be an awesome horror
This,
film.
the horror version of this film.
Yeah, because I thought it was going to be a horror. I thought it was absolutely going to be her, like, chopping these dudes up, and I was still going to go see it, and I hate horror movies.
So rather than promising young woman, it would be terrorizing young
Terrifying
psychopath.
young woman.
Yeah, terrifying young
Yeah.
psychopath. I don't know. Lady.
Okay, so I think the best character to have a spin-off movie is Gail.
She was my other answer.
She is great.
She's so cool and sassy, and I think she'd have some interesting stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree
Totes.
more.
Yep.
Question number 7. What deep philosophical debate arose in you during this film?
So, the thing that really sprang to mind immediately, and is something I've thought before, is that I don't understand how people can want to have sex with someone who doesn't totally want to have sex with them. I've had one situation where when I was drunk, I managed to talk this guy into having sex with me. And then afterwards, I've realized that he probably, maybe it was like a pity bonk or something. I don't know. But anyway, it actually made me feel really gross. Like I was just like, oh, like I didn't want to have sex with him if he didn't want to.
Yeah.
Like, ew. You know, and it really opened my eyes to like, even more to the idea of like, I don't understand rape at all. Like I get that it's actually mostly about power, but
And I think for some of these guys or the characters in the movie, it's not even that, it's their insecurity. Like they maybe think
Yeah.
they can't even get a girl unless, you know, they have this situation.
yeah, and that was what it kind of took my brain onto. It was like something is broken in society that these men that they encapsulate in this movie feel like they can only have sex with vulnerable women.
Yeah.
Like we need to do something where men don't feel disempowered by the fact that women are coming into their own and are these powerful, independent people by themselves. Don't feel threatened by that and actually find that sexy.
Yeah.
Like Sam, who obviously finds independent, brilliant women sexy and that he married one. So, like, why aren't all men like Sam?
Exactly.
Like, why can't we make... like, what can we do in society to fix it so that men find women like Stacey and I incredibly appealing because we are.
Well, I think there are a lot of them out there, right? I think we're
they're
starting
definitely
to
growing.
really generalise here.
This is not the 50s, 100%.
Yeah.
But there are men still like that. And I'm kind of sad, like, why have you not got on board?
This is gonna-
So I'm intrigued to see Sam's opinion.
It will sound almost nice guy, but I feel like there's a disconnect for guys similar to myself or whatever, like nice genuine guys. When they first meet a girl, there's maybe insecurity, inferiority complex. I'm not good enough for this person, all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
I feel like there's that aspect as well as like the first time you meet someone, you've got to be. You're not you become your representative. You become the best things about you, Oh, I love
Yeah,
going mountain biking.
100%.
I love cooking. I love socializing with people.
I go to the gym all the time.
No, you try not to say that. You're like, I'm always real outdoorsy. I love going to the beach.
Oh, no, as a woman, I would be.
Oh,
I'd be like, really?
Sorry,
I'm
yeah,
so,
as a woman,
you know,
yeah. So
I know what you mean.
It's like, it's just getting past that disconnect. And especially when, we're living in a Tinder generation where it's like first looks mean, so much. And it's
much.
like, you can be a lot more picky as a woman because you've got a lot more attention because guys are just like, I'll swipe yes to anything sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. So my deep philosophical debate is when I was watching this film and watching everything that this poor woman goes through and how patient she has to be and how much she has to put up with. My debate was if I woke up tomorrow and was a woman, could I handle it? And the answer is no. I can't see the amount of stuff that you guys go through as women and put up with and the patience you have to have. You have to be submissive, but at the same time, you don't want to get walked over like a doormat. But then if you're sort of too loud and outspoken, you're like a bitch who's, like a real nagger or a whinger, all that sort of stuff. It's like this fine balance that you guys have to walk on a day-to-day basis. I don't think I can handle that. And it's interesting that I say that because I did see an article recently about a documentary about a woman who, like vice versa, I was wondering if it would be harder for a woman to wake up as a man. But vice versa, a woman actually dressed and pretended to be a man for a year, and at the end of that year, she ended up in a mental hospital because she tried to kill herself.
Whoa.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
Right.
she found living as a man way too hard.
Wow. All I was going to say in response to that is, yeah, thanks. Like,
I mean,
and I
that's
think
it.
true.
Yeah,
Like,
that's all I could say.
I think
really.
we do live quite different lives, and we do have to kind of recognize that the world expects different things out of us, and it's not exactly like all peaches and cream for dudes either. Like,
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's
just,
not. But
it's just different.
yeah.
it's
but
completely different. And
things. Yeah.
I've got the mental fortitude to handle being a man from day-to-day basis. And I think if
That's what you're used to.
yeah, it's what I'm used to. But like that Freaky that we watched horror movie recently where a young girl swapped a body with Vince Vaughn, and it's like if I woke up like that tomorrow, like how would I handle it? I was like, I don't think I could. I think I'd.
No, he's not that bad looking. I'd be okay.
Fair
I'd
enough.
definitely jack off.
Anyway, what about you,
Always
Stacey?
curious what it's like for a dude to jack off. Is that just me?
It's not all that interesting. There's a lot of shame involved, a lot of crying.
But it seems way easier than like for a chick.
Yeah, I did. No.
You know, it's just like, well, okay, that's probably
Okay.
a whole
well,
different.
yeah, that's a whole
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
topic. Anyway, yeah, that's mine. What about you, Stace? What do you got?
Okay. As I was watching this movie, I started thinking about the documentary The Hunting Ground that you and I
Yes.
watched.
Oh, people need to watch
few
that.
Years ago. Liz, you've got to watch it.
Is that the you've told me about it before? It's the thing about sexual assault in
Yeah,
universities,
yeah.
right?
So I started thinking about The Hunting Ground, and then I started thinking about, for me personally, this was a personal philosophical debate. If I had not seen that documentary, I don't think watching this movie I would have fully understood the ramifications in real life. That this movie is so, like you said, it's slightly not dystopian, but slightly different reality. But the subject matter is so real. For me personally, and then I think it goes back to what you were talking about with your mum, Liz, is that I think that I've just been going through life not realizing, but not because I'm oblivious, but because you just do kind of push it down and move on and live your life and stuff like that. And
Exactly.
just try not to make a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's probably part of that being a good girl, like don't make a big deal out of things and that.
I think it's partly that people might not believe you, like in this case.
Yeah.
Partly you just kind of want to get on with things and be like, don't let this dick ruin shit, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, there's all sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and also there's also that guilt and shame that comes in like, oh, this was totally my fault. And it's like, was it though?
Yeah. So That was just, it's not a really succinct debate, but it's just some thoughts that I had watching it.
I agree with what you're saying.
Totally.
I feel like if you've seen The Hunting Ground, you have a way more of an appreciation for this film.
Yeah.
It's kind of unique in that it's almost like the HR of this world are the deans of university, where, you know,
they're just there to protect the university, not you.
The kids feel like they're there to protect you and help you out and support you, but really they're there to protect the company or protect the university.
Yeah, totally.
And that's what Hunting Ground
100%.
really shows. It's a brutal film.
It's the Connie Britton, the dean kind of aspect of this movie.
She legitimately could be a character pulled straight out of a documentary, which is phenomenal. Anywho, next one, question 8, also a Patreon question. Take it away, Liz.
All right. This question is asked by one of our delightful Patreons, Mr. Nick Haskins, who has the podcast now of Nikolis Kitchen. Talks all sorts of things about eating and delicious food. And oh my God, I cannot stop eating in quarantine. So I just need to move on before I just start shoving food in my face.
And his Instagram is like, oh my God. Every time I see the new food that he's made each day, I'm like, oh my God, yum.
Yes. Stacey's going to be on it soon.
Can you come and make us some food?
I'm petitioning for Stacey to be on that. I'm sure she will be soon.
Oh, you'd be amazing on it, 100%. Okay, so Nick would like to know how this movie could be rewritten into a Shakespearean comedy or tragedy, and I'm just going to start straight away by going, sorry, Nick, I can't answer this question because this is already a perfect fucking tragedy. That's it. I don't have an answer. So, Sam, what do you think?
The real tragedy would have been if her backup plan hadn't come through.
Oh, yeah, okay. And they'd just gone on and like had that lovely marriage and like wedding and that's true. Good point.
Maybe the film would have had more balls if it had done that. Like, it's already got a lot of balls. It already has a very horrible ending. And I feel like they had to put that in there to sort of appease the audience because you don't want to walk out of this feeling depressed as fuck. But if they'd done that, if they'd made that as a statement where it was like they managed to get away with it, you know, like the body got found and they've got no idea where she came from, who she is and all that sort of stuff. And then people are like, going to the police and going, hey, we reckon it's these guys, and they're like, we've got no evidence, and then just leaving it. That would have been horrifying.
Oh yes, well I agree. I think in Shakespearean tragedies there is always that your aspect of the mixed messages or things not quite flowing how they should. But also more people need to die. So I think that when she fed the guys at this bachelor party that drink, they never woke up.
Ooh.
Oh my God! Just everyone died.
And she fed
some Hamlet-style shit.
the groom exactly. And then he, so she does get strangled, but then he dies of poisoning soon after, along with all of his mates.
Fucking genius, Stacey.
The tragedy there would have been that they would have shown up at the bachelor party, and then they just find all these dead bodies. They've all been poisoned by the same bottle. And then they find her in bed, and she's the only one without poison in the system. And then he's handcuffed to a bed, but he's somehow fought her off and murdered her. Forever, her name would have been the psycho girl that went to a party and killed everyone there, and then got killed in self-defense. Question number 9. What is it there, Stace?
Question number 9. What was the wittiest retort in this film?
Oh my God, there were so many. Like, this film had me laughing out loud so many times. But I'm going with the bit where she's like, so you're a pediatrician or whatever. He's like, yeah. And she's like, how many children have you killed? And he's like, no, I operate. But how many have died? Oh, well, yeah. Stop asking me about this. And she's like, I will if you stop killing children. I was like, oh my God, that's so funny. That's so good. Like, it just brought me so much joy. I laughed for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I pretty much had everything Gail said. Gail was awesome. My one was Al Monroe going, it's every man's worst nightmare getting accused of something like that. And Cass just turning around and going, can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is? I was like, whoa.
That brought me so much joy. Oh my God, that was so satisfying.
It was deeply poignant and deeply satisfying. And, you know, he was basically saying a flippant comment of, it's like,
you don't understand. My life is so hard.
Yeah.
Some people think I'm a bad man.
Jog on, pal.
Yep, totally. My one is Ryan and Cassie are talking about how horrible dating is. And Ryan says he went on a date last month with a woman who wanted to euthanize the homeless. And Cassie said, you went on a date with my mom?
That was pretty good. Final question from ones that can be applied to any film. I mean, there's a million answers to this, and I mean, we've been over most of them already, but what was the biggest dick move in the film?
For me,
I'm assuming we're not doing the obvious one.
Yeah, let's leave the obvious one out.
Where he, like, murders someone.
is it me?
Yeah.
Well, it's his mate talking him out of it.
Yes,
it's
that's
like,
the answer.
no, it's okay. You didn't murder her.
No, the obvious one is him murdering her. Joe
I know.
talking him out of it's different.
Yeah, obvious one is the murder. We've mentioned that. But yeah, it's the mate talking out.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's like, who turns up, sees a dead body, and then goes, "It's okay. Nothing happened. It's not your fault." What?
Yeah.
It's not your fault. He didn't even ask any questions.
No.
That's what really gets to me. He didn't even go, "What happened?" He does not care.
Yeah.
He's just like, "No, you're fine.
This didn't happen.
We're good."
Yeah.
I always knew that arsehole out of New Guy was an arsehole. I always knew it. It was always...
I've seen tweets where people have been like, "This has made me view Schmidt in a very different way."
I always knew it. He's got a look about him.
See, I disagree because, I mean, not that I don't think that was complete cunt move, obviously, but the thing that really got to me was Madison having a video of the attack and never doing anything about it.
Yeah, there's well.
And like
yeah.
just looking at it and thinking it was funny.
Oh, here comes the
and
plane.
like,
Yep.
and then years later, she's like, "I'm not sure what made us think it was funny." I'm like, "Oh my God, I want to punch you in the fucking ovaries right now, Madison. You are literally the worst person ever."
Yeah, I mean, that was the other one. I mean, those two were actually the two I had written down. So, I mean, how do I top that? The only other one that I thought was kind of funny was when he said, "Have you spat my coffee?" And then she just did. I was like, it was
fucking
Yeah.
gold.
It was amazing. That being said, though,
And I love that he brings it up to her boss, and her boss is just like, "Oh my God," and then doesn't fire her.
Yeah. Well, even her, like, just her working at that coffee shop in general, when that girl was like, "Hey, can I buy a coffee?" And she just ignored her. It was like, what the fuck has that girl
It's
ever
the
done to you?
worst customer service ever.
Yeah, worst customer service ever.
Well, I think that segues us very well onto Stacey's first question.
Yes. What is it there, Stace?
Okay, my first question is exactly about that. How has Cassie not been fired from her job sooner?
Well, I think it's very obvious. Transition is expensive. Like, if you're going to transition from a man to a woman, I think it costs like $100,000 or something in America. I've seen loads of like Give a Littles or whatever the American one is, like GoFundMe's, you know? So if Gail could afford to do the transition, clearly that means that Gail is rich AF and therefore does not give a shit whether her cafe is profitable or not.
That's exactly what I had.
So
I had...
Really?
Yeah, you know, well, not that, but I had that Gail is basically... working for the mob or something, or is she or her own mobster, and this coffee house is basically just a tax write-off.
Well, all of the above could be true,
Yeah.
right? Like, she could be a mobster and have transitioned.
The other thing too, I mean, it's set in Cleveland, and like you get this in Los Angeles or New York or London or something like that, but you have these sort of niche coffee houses, and they have their own like peculiarities about them. Like, you know, there was that restaurant in London that never existed, and yet it was like the highest starred restaurant on TripAdvisor. People were like all going on about how they ate there and it was the most amazing, and it never even existed. And then you have like cat cafes and stuff like that. Like, maybe that's what Gail's
like
going
you
for.
dress
Is
in
Gail
white
just
and
wants
you
to
eat
have this
only white
cafe that has
food.
the worst customer service and the entire of America, and that's what she's going for. Just the worst.
Yeah. My next question is, this was really cutting the scene when Cassie comes out of the bar with that dude in the fedora and walks past Ryan as she's leaving. So how would you explain that?
Honestly, I when I was watching that scene, I was like, she just has to tell him the truth because he seemed like this decent dude. And I just feel like I would have been like, "Hey, fedora guy, fuck off. Ryan, let's go for a coffee or something somewhere. And I just need to explain to you what I'm doing and why." And I feel like you made a good point before. He was a nice guy. He was a selfish nice guy, which we find out later on when he just does whatever he needs to do to protect himself. But I feel like he would have, he didn't, I don't think he would have like not understood. I think he would have understood really well. And it might have turned him around. It might have made him go, "Holy shit, I didn't realize it would affect so many lives, so many ways. Like, I love you, I really care about you," or whatever. So...
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would have gone for as well. I just would have sat him down and tried to explain the situation to him, because that would have been a little bit more believable. And I was talking about this sort of like jarring changes than what happens in the film, which he's like, "I need to talk to you." And he's like, "We're done. I don't want anything to do with you. Never talk to me ever again." And then the next scene, he storms into her cafe and starts making out with her. I was like, really? Way to get over it.
And their whole relationship was a bit flimsy, really, because when they proclaimed their love for each other, they both knew so little about each other.
That's true.
At that point. He doesn't know why she's working in a shitty cafe, 7 years after med school.
One of the things I really liked once, I read this thing that said, love isn't about like what you love about each other. It's about like loving someone despite of the things that you don't like.
Oh,
or like,
yeah.
the things that, and I think that's so true. Like it's really easy to love someone when they're just putting their best foot forward.
I know all about that. I know all about that.
How do you know all about that?
Because Stacey loves me despite all the shit I do.
Okay, so some of us think that Carey Mulligan smashed it out of the park. Do you think she will win the Oscar for this part?
I feel like she should be a front runner, and she is. From all talk, she is a front runner. But you guys need to see Pieces of a Woman on Netflix. Vanessa Kirby is probably going to win it.
Have not heard of it.
First half an hour is probably the best acting from an actress in a long time.
I'm not even sure. Like, I liked Carey Mulligan in this. I thought she did very well. I'm kind of worried that she's going to get it because the Academy is trying to look less shit, and it's easier to be like, yay, white feminism, than it is like, hey, let's actually give some awards to people of colour. Because the Academy's had a pretty bad rep in the last few years about that, right? So if she gets it, I'll be kind of concerned thinking, is this just because you're trying to rehabilitate your reputation, Academy? I think she'll at least get a nomination.
Yeah. Moves me over to my questions. Yeah, I mean, this question poses an interesting idea. I want to know from you guys, like, how far would you go to avenge one of your friends after what's happened to her? Like, would you do what she does in this film? I probably not, right? But at the same time, like, what would you guys do if this happened to your best friend? Would you try and seek some vengeance or retribution?
I would not go as far as Cassie. It seemed quite an extreme reaction.
Yeah.
Really.
It took over her whole life.
Yeah, and even Nina's mum, in that scene where she's like, you've got to move on. It's just grief that has just twisted and is so gnarly, that it's destroying her.
I think it was quite good, actually, that they have that scene. Like, I agree with Sam, it was a little bit jarring, but it was also kind of quite good to show that literally everyone, including the victim's mother, were like, you need to move on.
We needed that
and
scene.
she couldn't.
Yeah.
And she even tried, but then they pulled her back in.
Yeah, so not as far as Cassie. I'm not really that kind of person, actually, that would just outwardly go about seeking.
Yeah, you're not like a consumed with something type person.
No, I would try and find inner peace and healing and just try and be a good person,
Yeah, do your best to
and I'm
get
sure your
like some
would
sort of
want
legal
that too.
repercussions, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah. Go down a legal route if possible. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so this film gave me massive Veronica Mars parallels. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it is one of my favourite TV shows. And very quick, slight plug, I'm going to be doing an episode of the Rabbit Ears pod.
Hey!
Yay!
Yeah, I'm going to be doing the Rabbit Ears, and I'm going to be talking about Veronica Mars.
Hey!
It's very exciting.
Yeah,
So that'll be a February episode, so something to look out for.
Cool.
One of my favourite shows of all time, and the whole thing about Veronica Mars is that she gets raped and her friend gets murdered, and she tries to get vengeance on those who are responsible. But she went from her dad's was the sheriff and becomes a private investigator, and I think that's the kind of route I would have gone down. Like, so she takes an investigation approach. She asks everyone questions. She identifies the people that are key, the people with evidence or the perpetrators, etc. And then she blackmails them or puts them in awkward situations. And she's just super smart and uses her cunning and her smarts to just really fuck them over and get what she needs. And I feel like that might be me. If one of my friends, something like that happened to them, I like to think that I would try and investigate it and try and get the evidence that we needed to get legal action against them.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know what would happen if something happened to Fern. I don't know how far
It's
I'd go.
hard to say, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of it's a weird
it's hard
situation.
to say.
Yeah.
You just don't know till it happens.
Until you're in that situation. I mean, I'd do anything for Fern, so I don't even want to know. I don't even want to test those limits. But my next question is, I mentioned the guy outside Alfred Molina's house. What was he there to do? What was she going to get him to do?
Well, this is where it goes into the extreme horror version, isn't it?
Like, was she going to
Is
get him
he
to
a
go in there and
hitman?
beat the crap out? Yes, yeah, hitman.
Well,
What is
see,
he?
I think that's a really good question because her method was all about social engineering and psychology. It was all about fucking with their heads.
Yeah.
She wasn't about violence. So I think that the guy might have like gone in and like held him up at gunpoint and pretended like he was going to rape him just to scare him.
Right, that's probably as good an answer as any.
Yeah.
And then my final question, I was thinking about it later, and it was kind of like, well, me and Stacey had a little bit of a chat, broke the movie podcast cardinal rule of like never talking about your podcast before you start recording, but we started having a chat about this. I want to know, like, do you guys think she might have intentionally left the cuff on Al a little bit loose so that he would murder her? And I've got an idea as to why maybe I think that, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
I can see where you're going with this because, yes, in some ways the story, it is quite poetic that she does end up killing herself over
Correct.
this whole situation. But in the movie, I just think it's that those handcuffs, they wouldn't have been professional bloody military grade handcuffs or whatever. They were just flimsy little
They had pink
handcuffs.
fluff on them, didn't they?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. So it was just he just got out of it. They just weren't that great handcuffs.
Okay, cool.
yeah, see, I just don't know because it does seem ridiculous that he could free that one hand so quickly,
Yeah.
but not the other, especially since he had a free hand, once he freed the first hand, to work on the second arm all night. Yet he still laid there by the corpse for like 6 hours or 8 hours or whatever, you know? Like, if I was him, I'd be doing whatever I could to get the fuck away from the dead body lying next to me. Do you know what I mean? And like, I didn't think of it originally, but after I watched it, it did sort of come to, like, I was sort of like, it is ridiculous that arm got, that he got that arm free. And then Sam, you sent your questions through, and I was like, yes, I could see what you're saying there.
Yeah, so that's almost how I feel, is like she almost sacrificed herself so that he would get the repercussions that he deserved. And the reason why I say that is because like she had it so planned out of like, in the event that I die, that all this sort of stuff happens. So there was that aspect, but then the other aspect was that, she tried to have a boyfriend, she tried to move on, she tried to get over everything. It all blew up in her face. Like, what is left for her at this point? You know what I mean? Like, she is just, she's like, her parents are kicking her out of her house. She doesn't have a boyfriend. She's got her repercussions on some of these other characters. It's like she's got to this point where she knows if I die, this person is fucked forever.
No, I think that's a really good call.
Cool. Moves us over to Liz. What are your questions?
All right. So, one of the first quite emotional scenes in the film for me was when Adam Brody's character, Jerry, took Cassie home and he's like putting the moves on her and she's just not in any state to be having sex with anyone. And he just keeps going and he like jumps on her and he's touching her and it's just, to me, it made me feel gross. And I just wondered how you guys felt watching that scene.
Gross.
I felt
Okay,
very uncomfortable. I was highly concerned about where the movie was going.
So did I. And the like hard turn that it took was the fact that he actually seemed like a relatively normal. Like compared to his two friends at the bar, he was like, "No, I've got to get her out of here. This is just."
Yeah,
and then he's taken home. And he's like, "Why don't you come back to my place?" So I was like, "Where the fuck is this coming from?"
You're safe. You're safe.
Yeah.
Like that really killed me how he kept saying that.
I think it was really smart, a really smart opening scene because it set the movie and it set the emotional intensity right from the get-go of you're going to feel a lot of different things watching this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It took you on a roller coaster from the start and made you realize what this film was all about, which was like a lot of, like a little bit of dark comedy, but not really. But it was like, we are really going to test your emotions in this film.
That takes me into my next question, actually, because we only saw Cassie make black marks in her notebook, but there are a bunch of red ones. I found that super interesting. I thought she was going to make a red, like they'd show what the red one was, and they never did. So what do you guys think that the red marks in her notebook were about?
I like that it could potentially be violence, like blood got incurred, and so she's recording the amount of times that that's happened. Because I feel like the black ones are the ones where the guy suddenly went, oh shit, hang on, wait a minute, and suddenly had like, second thoughts. Whereas I feel the red ones are the ones where the guys are like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to try it anyway, and that's when, I don't know, she pulled out a taser. She's not, I'm sorry, like some of these guys that she's taken home are going to be easily able to physically overempower her. So I'm hoping that she has a taser or something that could even the score.
Yeah, you would bloody hope so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I just think she couldn't find a red pen.
I knew you.
There's the Stacey answer.
I had a feeling one of you would
Black
say like,
pen or
oh
whatever.
no, that's just the pen that was closest. It means
Yes,
something.
exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, anyway, that moves us down to
Yeah, on a
your
lighter
last
note,
question,
yeah,
Liz.
question 19. Yeah. Joe was a interesting character. Not even sure how that fucking guy passed mid school because he was a goddamn moronic sociopath.
Yeah.
Like,
Nepotism,
he was a
Liz.
nut
Nepotism.
job. Oh my God. Like, you just watch him and you're just like, oh, you are the worst.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of his stupidest moments, though, I just thought I actually laughed out loud, was when the cops turn up at the wedding at the end to arrest Al, and Joe runs off. What does he think is going to happen? I'm curious what you think when Joe runs away from the cops at the end. What do you think his plan was? What do you think he thought was going to happen?
Come on, Liz. It's obvious. He wants to make himself look as guilty as possible. What Alan? I was like, yeah. Like, we talked about it. Me and Stacey were like, could you not make yourself look more guilty? Yeah, it's just an idiot.
But he's not going to get away. Like, does he plan to go and, like, live in the wilderness?
But you forget.
He's not a smart man,
you forget.
obviously.
You forget. He is.
Well, he is.
He is the
He goes to medical
absolute
school.
king of denial.
Yeah,
He is in
yeah.
denial about all reality on planet Earth. So it's just part of that.
Yeah, it's like how everyone has the flight or flight response. His flight response, you know, like they find a dead body rather than like fight it and say, hey, she did this, she did that, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't do that. He goes and dumps her out in the bush and sets
Fine,
fire
we'll
to
burn
it.
her body. It'll be fine. So, Stacey, what do you think he did when he ran into the bushes? What happened after that?
Oh, well, he didn't get very far. The cops got him about 200 metres down the road or, down the track or whatever.
No.
I like
Nothing-
to imagine him in some really shitty motel, like calling his girlfriend and being like, you need to get me out of here. And she's like, did you actually murder that girl? Fuck you. I'm calling the cops and telling them where you are. Like, do you know, like I just...
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I want some poetic
Police.
justice. I want him running into the bush and then a rattlesnake jumps up, bites him on the cock, and then he dies a painful, agonizing death from a snake bite to the testicles and penis.
I would also take that.
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that.
Over
yeah.
the space of
I just-
24 hours, he goes through the most incredible pain that a man can go through before dying.
I like that. Anyway.
Yep. Anywho, that moves us down to our final question, also a Patreon question. This comes courtesy of the amazing man. This is Dan Brennick of the Netflix and Swill podcast. You guys know all about Dan, all things Netflix related. Go check it out. There's a link down in the show notes. He's a man, and thank you, Dan. And what Dan would like to know this week is who's the real MVP of this film, and it can't be the main character. Although Carey Mulligan, yeah, she is definitely the MVP. What about you guys? Who do you reckon?
Clearly.
It's Cassie's dad.
Yeah. Okay.
That's funny.
It's not funny. The reason is because he's the best dad possible. He's holding that family together. Cassie's mum is losing her shit over her daughter being so unhinged. She can't handle it. She doesn't understand her daughter, and it's making her really upset. The dad doesn't understand it, but he's like, hey, let the girl celebrate her birthday however she wants to. And that, I think, is symbolic of his approach to the whole thing. He's probably why she hasn't just gone out and straight killed herself before this point.
That's a good point. He is, yeah, definitely a rock and foundation. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And I agree. It isn't funny, but it's funny because that's basically what I said. But my answer, I wrote it out, this answer. I was just like, I really struggled with this question because so many of the characters in this film just sucked.
Mm-hmm.
I like that she had him to remind her that not all men are cunts.
Yeah.
Because it's really important, because it's easy as a woman to see this stuff going on and read the stories about men like murdering their wives and kids or knowing that one of your friends has been assaulted or whatever. It would be easy to hate men, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person. So I'm really grateful for the men in my life that I know are good people. Because when I watch the news and stuff, I can feel like there aren't any. But then I know that I've got these amazing men in my life that are really great men, and I really wish that all men were like them. Sam, you're one of
Oh,
them.
yay.
Yeah. I really didn't want him to say it, but there we are.
There you go, listeners. Apparently, I'm a great man. Not blushing at all.
You're
Heard
a
it here
decent
first.
human being.
Yeah. Heard it here first and last, probably for all time. On our most serious podcast, Liz has said something serious and nice.
I will
now.
never say anything nice about you forever. I promise.
Excellent,
after
cool.
this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, thank you, Liz. I mean, we've already talked about him. Alfred Molina's character, he was a man of his word. He actually followed through on what he was going to do. He, proved himself or sent the cops there. I mean, it just, it makes sense for all the reasons we've talked about. I mean, it's easy to get sort of wallow in your sad sackness and not actually follow through on the things that you're meant to do. And he gets offered that chance, that redemption arc, and he takes it, which I think is the true MVP. Ryan had a chance to be an MVP. He just blew it.
Yes.
So that's...
Yeah, exactly that. Like, so many people are like Ryan, who are like, well, I'm not involved. I'm not going to be punished for this, so
Yeah.
I'm just staying out of
Yeah.
it. Well, that's nice, but it doesn't really help society.
Exactly. And that takes us to the end. Thank you to these guys for joining us. It's been great talking about this film. I was very much looking forward to it, and I've had a blast.
Yeah, thank you so much for the suggestion, Stacey.
Yes, and I think, Sam, that that we could just continue talking about this movie for another 2 or 3 hours.
We could.
If you wanted us to.
We should do a raw episode where we just talk about the themes and aspects of the film.
There's so many thoughts of that whole movie. Like, oh my God.
There is just so much in this film that we could talk about. You're right. It's endless. And I feel like we've covered most of the hot topics of it. Some stuff that I feel like we're missing, but hey, that is what it is.
I feel like I've actually managed to cover off all the things that I wanted to cover, which I'm really pleased about.
Yeah. Upcoming episode next week, talking about girls, we have the Girl Crush pod on to do Bird Box. I'm very much looking forward to that. They are first-time guests, and I've seen their questions. I know they're going to crush it. Very much looking forward to that. After that, well, Machu and Kahu haven't been on a while, and Kahu really wants to do RoboCop, so we'll probably do that. And then, who knows? Who knows? The future is uncertain. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can find us on Twitter at Movie Reviews In. You can find us on Facebook at Movie Reviews in 20 Qs. Or you can send us an email at mritqs@gmail.com. I've got to say a massive thank you to a couple of new Patreons. First of which is Nutravert. I'll put links down to these guys because they've got their own podcast as well. The other one being Luke Spalding, who's got You Might Also Like Podcast, which is also a film podcast. They've come on as Patrons, and that means the world to us. Every time we get new ones, it honestly makes my heart sing, as well as all our other Patrons. Hope you guys like the Ask Me Anything episode. We had a blast recording it. In the future, I'm still talking about this like we're doing it, but we're about to do it right now. But we had a blast with you guys' questions. Massive thank you from us. I mean, obviously we didn't do any episodes over January, had to have that break, and it's so good to be back into it now, and really looking forward to entertaining you guys more through 2021.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, amazing.
And that's the most awkward way we can say goodbye. Anyway, thank you. Bye.
Bye.